So if you're watching this video, you're probably a Met fan, and I don't have to tell you that the Mets have lost 5 games in a row. Now, over the weekend, they lost. They got swept by the Rays, and me and a lot of people were just chalking it up to the Rays were hot. The Rays are a good offensive team. The Mets really just were going through a little bit of a struggle over the weekend with their pitching and everything. And we were going to just sweep it under the rug and kind of wipe it from memory and hope that it was just a blip on the radar. But now the first 2 games in Atlanta, they've looked really bad. Game one, they blew a lead and they lost in embarrassing fashion. One of the worst losses of the year. I don't care who you are, losing like that to the Braves is a terrible thing and not something you ever want to see. And then last night in game two, they're completely dominated by Chris Sale. Now, that could be excused because Chris Sale is a great pitcher. He won the Cy Young last year, and I think he's got about a 1 ERA in his last 8 or 9 starts. This dude's been unbelievable lately. So I'm not that concerned about them getting dominated by Chris Sale because he's been dominating a lot of teams this year. But the loss last night is made worse because of the fact that you blew the first game of the series. And that's because if the series was 1-1 right now after running into a really good pitcher, I'd be like, okay, no big deal. Win today. You prove that it was just a little blip on the radar. But now at this point, you have to win today just to not get swept by the Braves. And in all honesty, to me, I thought that the Mets had maybe slayed the dragon or exorcised those demons by their win last year in Atlanta to make the playoffs. And it shows right now that they really haven't, right? And we could say that the Mets came in cold, and the Mets aren't really hitting very well right now. And they have a lot of injuries in their pitching staff with Senga out, McGill out, Canning regressing. You have Paul Blackburn making a start against Chris Sale. Yes, that is absolutely true. But even on the days that they are getting good starting pitching, their bullpen is blowing it. And even on the days that they do score some runs, their pitching, fails. So at the end of the day, they're just not playing well right now. And the the season's not over. I'm not saying that they're a bad team all of a sudden. They're still in first place by 1 game. That could all change today if they lose and the Phillies win. But you know, this is a problem and has been throughout the year. There's times that their offense just goes completely lifeless. There's times that only recently, because at the beginning of the season, their pitching was pretty much good every day. But now that you're going into your seventh, eighth, ninth starters because you have so many injuries, you're really seeing some issues that this team has. Now, we do have people back on, coming back on the way. We have Montas and Manaya, and Senga shouldn't be out for very long. But are we really happy about Frankie Montas after getting completely bullied in the minor leagues in his rehab starts? I'm not. I don't think he's going to be any better than we've seen out of McGill or Blackburn or anything. I don't know. Could he be? Sure. Maybe there's a little bit better of a track record there, but do we have any faith that Frankie Montas is going to turn things around? We think Manaya is going to be fine, but we're probably still a couple weeks away from him. So, I don't know how this is going to necessarily get better. And it's not going to get better if they keep making excuses. I'm going to play some video here from some post-game press conferences where there's been some excuse making. And I understand that as fans, we probably care about these losses more than the players do. They understand it's a long season. This is a job for them. You're gonna fail at your job sometimes. You're not gonna do a great job. That's just the way life works. And we kind of live and die on every pitch and every game. So we take this a lot more seriously than they do. But the excuses after the game is what kind of bothers me. Now, it was better last night, but after Tuesday night's game, I was kind of flabbergasted at some of the excuses that I saw. So I'm going to get into those now, and then I'm going to comment on them kind of as they go. So yeah, here we go.
Francisco, just can you take us through the decision-making process where you decided to throw to second rather than either run at the runner or throw to third?
Si tú puedes hablar sobre la decisión de tirar para segunda en vez de tercera en ese último inning ahí.
So I really think that play is a reaction play, and I reaction to second base.
Your reactions to second base because you thought that's where the runner was heading back towards? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I saw the runner going back, and I think I have a chop to second base. But now, after the play, I think it's better to eat the ball in that play.
The decision making?
The play with Alvarez,
where he threw the ball to second rather than.
I mean, he gets the runner hanging there, and as soon as he makes a move towards the second base, Alvey just gets rid of the ball trying to get in. That was a good play by the runner there, realizing that he was kind of like on no man's land and took off. So, yeah, you got to give him credit on that one.
Okay, so in that situation, because he made that move to second, do you not have a problem with him throwing to second base there?
No, I mean, once, that's your reaction there. You pick up the baseball, you get a runner that is hanging there between second and third, and he makes an attempt to go back. As a player, your reaction is you're gonna try to get him, and then, he did a good job and took advantage of it.
And then,
Now, you heard what Alvarez said there. Obviously, that he was reacting and he threw the ball to second base because that was his reaction, because the runner kind of stepped towards second base. And Mendoza backed him up there. And to me, that's just the wrong thing to do. Obviously, we all know that the point there is to keep the runner at second, right? Yes, you'd love to get him out, but you have to make sure he doesn't get to third in that situation. So throwing the ball to second does absolutely nothing. It really doesn't. Yes, could you make a spectacular play and get him out? Sure, it could happen, but make the smart play, run him back to second, or throw the ball to third base. And if he breaks towards third, he's out. And if he goes back to second, you kept him at second base. There's literally no other answer there except for I made the wrong play. And to say that, that was my reaction and we were just trying to make a play, that doesn't mean anything. It was the wrong play. And it's okay just to say, like, hey, I messed up. I threw to second base when I should have thrown to third, or I should have walked the guy back to second. It's okay to admit that. And I think those are the kind of excuses that are just, they don't help anyone. At the end of the day, Alvarez should be back in the minor leagues right now. He should be in AAA getting his head right. And making these excuses for him when we all can plainly see that he's just not right, and he's supposed to be this great player. He was a number one prospect in baseball, and he came up and looked like he was going to be a superstar, and now he's struggling, and he's still only 23 years old with options. Send him to the minor leagues, let him get his head right, stop making excuses for him, because that doesn't help anything. And I think that's what now could they have talked in the room privately after the play, and maybe they just don't want it out in the media? Sure, but you can't just go out there and lie and say, oh, that's just a reaction play and no big deal. It is a big deal, because that's an easy play. Would I react that way? I don't know, but I'm not a Major League Baseball player. These guys should know the situation and know what they're supposed to do in those situations on every play. They should have it planned in their head on every play that's going to happen. And it just seems like they lack that sometimes, especially Alvarez. He's been really bad defensively and offensively, and I really think could use some time in the minor leagues right now. Next, we're going to get into a clip of something that an excuse was made, but it's one that I kind of agree with, and that's the Soto play where he got doubled up at first base. But we'll get into that. We'll talk about it after the clip.
is that when you're caught in between first and second and can't see if he made the catch or if it bounced off the wall?
I mean, we rely on the umpires, so we wait for them to make the call. We have some like that early this year too, and the goal is look for the umpire and make sure he makes the right call. But I felt like he just took way too long to make the decision, and it just put me in a tough spot.
Like you said, that's the second time something like that has happened this season. How frustrating is that?
It's just part of the game. It just, at the end, we just got to look like we messed it up. We just got to learn from it. Next time, I mean, I don't know. We probably make decisions on our own, because I was trying to make sure he caught it or they make the right call, and he just took forever to do it.
How helpless a feeling is that when you're not getting the call either way?
It's just tough because it puts you in a tough spot, right there, tie game. I'm trying to, at least get to tear or score, and then something like that happens. It's just tough.
For Soto, just how difficult is that when you think it may have hit off the wall and clearly didn't see what the call was from the umpire?
Yeah, not an easy decision there. He's kind of like on no man's land too, and Acuna makes a hell of a play, and then looks like the umpire took a while to signal whether it was a catch or not. And like Juan is kind of waiting, and that was my argument there. But obviously for the umpire, he's got to wait for Acuna to show him the ball before he makes any call. So in the heat of the moment, obviously it happens fast. and you go and argue, but a tough play there for Juan, great play for Acuna.
Now, obviously, this is not a good look. Getting doubled off at first base on a fly ball to right field, great play by Acuna there. But in all honesty, watching that play live, I didn't know if he made the catch. You saw that paper he had that came out of his glove that maybe looked like it was the ball. It was an odd play. Yes, if you look back on replay, he clearly made the catch. It was absolutely a catch and really very conclusive. But live in the game, I was confused by the play. And Acuna standing between first and second base, you could see obviously he didn't know what happened because he's standing between first and second with his arms out in the air, looking at the umpire, saying, "Is it a catch or not?" He doesn't know, and it could have very easily have not been a catch, and maybe bounced off the wall and into his glove, even though that sounds really strange. And then he gets doubled off at second, so he has to be sure what happens before he does anything. Because, like Mendoza said there, he's stuck in no man's land. He doesn't know whether to go back to first or continue on to second, because either way, he's in risk of getting doubled off. So, obviously, it's an excuse there, and it's something that you never want to see happen in a game. But to me, I look at that play and say that could easily happen to anyone. That wasn't something that was a clear play to me. You might have a different opinion on it. Let me know in the comments if you thought right away it was a catch or not a catch. I assumed it was a catch because it looked like it, but then you see the paper coming out of his glove. It's white. I don't know if that's the ball kind of dribbling down. I have no idea. So I could easily see why that happened with Soto. He caught a lot of heat for it. WFAN and Brandon Tierney and all, they were just trashing him for it and saying it was a stupid play. It can't happen. Well, it could have happened to anyone, and that's something that really the umpire, if you look, didn't make the call right away. And as soon as he made the call, Soto took off back to first. So it wasn't a simple a play as it seems. So this is an excuse. While it's still an excuse, and you can't make excuses if you get doubled off at first base, it seems valid to me. I don't really have an issue with this play in terms of being a stupid play or a bonehead kind of play. It was a bang bang thing, and he didn't really know, and I get it. It didn't look clear to me off the in live real time either. So I don't really know what to say about this one. It's an excuse, but one that I can kind of forgive. Now, you also had some guys who tried to take accountability after that game. And while Alvarez made excuses for his, bad play, not running the runner back to second base, he did try to take accountability for his pitch selection, basically, against Ozuna, which allowed the double that's 3 runs scored there for the Braves that tied up the game. Garrett also took accountability for it. And it's just kind of nice to see them being on the same page with that, at least. So there's not issues between the two guys, but we'll kind of get into a little bit of that clip as well.
The first 2 outs of that inning, what were you guys trying to do there to get out of that inning?
Después que saca esos 2 outs, que ustedes están tratando de hacer en esa situación ahí.
So with Garrett, we have 2 outs. We have Ozuna hitting with 2 strikes. He called fastball, and I changed the pitch to a splitter. So I think he was right, and I changed the pitch. I think I make maybe a mistake in that situation. So I feel bad, very bad for that. I maybe gotta stay with him with the fastball. I don't need to change anything, but I did it, so I think I feel bad for that too.
Cisco was just saying that he changed the pitch from a fastball to a splitter. From your point of view, what's that conversation like when he makes that call and after the result?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to look back and think that we threw the wrong pitch, but Albie called my swing and miss pitch. I could have executed a little bit better. We could have gotten a little bit more lucky. I had thought that, like, after the emergency swing, that he wouldn't have been on time for a fastball. But in my mind, that's what I thought. So I called it, and Albie changed it. And I thought that maybe he saw something that I didn't see. So
I don't think it's the wrong pitch. I don't think it's the right pitch. We had plenty of other options. I just think that like if it was executed just down a little bit more, it could have been a ground ball, or we could have gotten a little bit luckier. Because I mean, we got it off the barrel. He got it. I mean, he did a good job keeping it fair. It's a good hitter. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
Now, I love seeing this because to me, it looks like two teammates that are trying really hard not to throw each other under the bus. They're supporting each other. Alvarez says, I changed the pitch. Garrett wanted to throw a fastball. I called for a splitter. And then Garrett says, basically, I changed it to a splitter, or I wanted it to be a fastball. Alvarez wanted a splitter, but if I made a better pitch, it wouldn't have mattered. I don't think it was necessarily the wrong pitch to throw there. I just didn't execute. So it's clearly two guys who were not on the same page necessarily with that pitch selection, but they're taking accountability for it, taking ownership of it, and not wanting to throw the other one under the bus. That's important because it shows that even though they're losing right now, they're still a team. They still support each other. They'll criticize the umpires. They'll criticize all that kind of stuff, and they'll criticize their own performance in some cases. But they're not going to go after a teammate and not put the blame on someone else, even though clearly they both think maybe it was the other one's fault. They're not going to say that, and they're going to take the ownership on them. And I think that's important, and it's nice to see that they're not falling apart as a team, even though they've lost five in a row, and it's getting a little ugly at this point. They're not going after each other. I think that's great to see. Now, I think what I want to talk about next is something that you know Mendoza got a lot of heat for keeping Peterson in the game for the eighth inning, and honestly, I had no issue with it. But this is kind of his thoughts on this.
To get Peterson through eight there when he went out there for the eighth.
Yeah, especially with the way he was throwing the ball. You got a 3-run lead there. He's at 82 pitches before the inning started with a 9-hole. He walked him there. You still like your chances of getting a ground ball. He was getting a lot of ground balls, and with a 3-run lead. It just didn't happen today. We were 1 pitch, 1 strike away from getting out of it. And just couldn't get the job done there.
Now, honestly, those are my thoughts exactly. Peterson was at 82 pitches. Why not put him in there in the eighth inning? Listen, we all complain when starters don't go deep enough into games. And then when a guy's at 82 pitches, he gets heat for having him go out for the eighth, right? Yes, he gave up 2 base runners and couldn't get an out in the eighth inning. Garrett obviously came in and kind of blew it there, even though he was close to getting out of it. That double by Ozuna really, ended the Mets' chances. It just completely turned the tide in that game. But listen, you can blame Mendoza for a lot of things. Sometimes his pitching decisions, his bullpen decisions aren't great. Sometimes the guys he decides to play on a given day, maybe a guy has a couple really good games in a row and he sits them for a day. Sure, all of those can be valid concerns. But this one is not. Peterson deserved to go out there for the eighth. He was at 82 pitches. He wasn't laboring. He was great throughout the whole game. And yes, he did go 9 innings in his last start, but he was rolling and he was pitching really well. He'd only given up 1 run in 7 innings at 82 pitches. Why wouldn't he go in? The only thing I think you can really have a problem with Mendoza in that inning is that he didn't have Garrett warming up at the beginning of the inning. He basically assumed Peterson was going to be able to get out of it, and Garrett didn't start the inning warming up. There was no warming up behind Peterson until he gave up the first base runner. And I think that's the only thing you can really criticize him for in this situation. And I think that's a fair, valid thing to criticize because he should have had someone warming up. And a lot of people said, oh, Garrett would have been fine if he came in with a clean inning. We don't know that. He came in and gave up, I believe, a walk and a hit right away. So it's not like he was super sharp either. Yes, he did get the next 2 outs and was close to getting that third out. Didn't work out, but listen, it was the right decision. It didn't work out. Sometimes you make the right call and it doesn't work. That's just how life works. The last clip we're going to get into is Lindor, and really, he always says the right things, and Lindor always takes ownership. He's always available for the media, and really he's the captain of this team without the C on his chest. And these are just his comments, and I wanted to include them because it's important to include kind of the good things as well. And it's nice to see a player take accountability like Lindor always does.
done a pretty good job avoiding losing streaks. I mean, this now you're at 5. This is extended the longest. I mean, is this time you feel that the team has to dig down here and figure a way out of it?
100%. 100%. I mean, it's we did a really good job the first month, 2 months and a half of playing things through. And this is the time of the year that we're going through it. You know, every team goes through it. And as a team, we got to continue to push each other. Like you said, we got to dig deep and continue to climb. At the end of the day, everybody here wants it. And we all understand it's a long year. We're going to deal with adversity. Put our heads down and work as hard as you can to get back to the winning side. And then don't look back.
Does there feel like any more sense of urgency just with it being 2 division opponents here in a 10-game stretch?
We have had sense of urgency since spring training. This is not like, oh, we're losing, we got to kick it up a notch. No, we've been doing that since spring training. Everybody understands the ultimate goal here, and it's a standard. You know, everyone that comes to this organization knows that I have to play the game the right way, has to play hard, got to push each other, and at the end of the day, it's all about winning. You know, nothing else matters about winning. So the sense of urgency is there. Everybody comes out of the games understanding that no one wants to lose, and we have to play better.
These 5 losses, have you seen any sort of common theme that you think you guys can improve on?
I can definitely get better. I can get on base for Pete, for Soto, for the rest of the guys. I can run the bases better. You know, just that's at the end of the day, it's tough to win games when your leadoff guy is not getting on base. And yeah, that's what I would do. Try to get better. Try to be a better hitter and get on base for the guys.
Now, obviously, you see there Lindor taking accountability, putting pressure on himself, or putting the blame on himself, saying, you know, if the leadoff hitter's not getting on base, then it's hard to win games. I need to set the table basically for Alonso and Soto and those guys. And listen, he doesn't have to say that, because the truth is there's been a lot of guys slumping. Alonso hasn't been hitting all that well. Obviously, Lindor's not hitting all that well. Soto's been hot and cold. The bottom of the lineup has basically given you not much of anything lately. So he doesn't have to take all the blame on himself, but he does. He's willing to do that. He's willing to say that, you know, he's a part of it, and I think that's important. And this really shows that if your leader isn't making excuses, then the rest of the guys shouldn't really be making excuses either. They're not panicking. There's no panic in Lindor's face. There's no panic in Juan Soto's face. They're not panicking. And I think as fans, we also have to realize that this is a long season. You know, I've seen tons of people on X and saying the season's over. This is the start of the downfall, and the Mets they're proving that they're not a good team. And I don't believe that for a second. And you can be that kind of fan if you want. You can be the doom and gloom fan and say that they're terrible and they're not going to get any better. And you know, listen, they're going through a rough patch right now. They're not hitting, and their pitching has regressed in some situations and is hurt in others. So this is a tough stretch for the Mets, and it's really the lowest point of the season at this point, and they're still, 15 games over 500? Like, you have to kind of look at it in its totality. They're still a game up in the division, and they're still 15 games over 500. I think they still have the fourth or fifth best record in baseball. So saying that the season is over and they're terrible now and they can only beat bad teams when you know that's not the case is just kind of reactionary and crazy to me at this point. I'm not going to bash anyone for how they want to fan. You can fan however you want, but you look really dumb saying things like that. And really, at the end of the day, like, what does it do for you except other than to rant? And I know some of them are rage bait, and some people don't actually mean it, and they're just maybe upset at the time. But there's really no point to it. There's no point to saying the season's over when you're 15 games over 500. Like, it's just dumb. And like I said, fan however you want. You're allowed to say whatever you want, and I can call you dumb for saying it. That's just the way it works. But anyway, obviously, I'm not in a panic right now. Hopefully they can win today and at least not get swept in Atlanta. But even if they do, They're going to Philly next. They still own Philly. I think that might be what they need to kind of get kicked into gear here. They always play well against Philadelphia, especially lately. So let's just hope that this is just a blip, and I really believe that it is. Hopefully the pitching can get a little healthier. Maybe we get better results. Clay Holmes pitching tonight, I believe. Yep, Clay Holmes tonight against Strider. I think it'll be a good matchup, and I think for once maybe the Mets do have the better pitcher going in this series. I think Clay Holmes right now, because Strider's still making his way back from that injury and still not at 100%, the Mets might actually have the pitching matchup lined up for them. So hopefully they get some runs off of Strider. They have in the past. They've hit him well. He's been kind of up and down against the Mets, but overall, we'll see what happens. If you're still here, you like this kind of content, please subscribe, give me a like, comment whatever you want. Let me know if you're panicking. I want to know. Hopefully you're not, because I don't think we should be. But anyway, until next time, let's go Mets.